We finally got to hear from veteran free agents DJ Chark and Kristian Fulton, and it was clear that Fulton is ready for a new start in Los Angeles, and it was also clear that DJ Chark is very excited to play with Justin Herbert.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Drogemeyer, and we've been covering the Chargers now for 8 seasons together, but this is our 6th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you to you all for making us your first listen as always, and thank you to the everydayers out there that continue to support. And to make sure you never miss the show, go subscribe and follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. David, what do we got today?
Well, Daniel, listening to DJ Chark and Kristian Fulton, it was clear that Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert were two of very big reasons why these veterans decided to join the Los Angeles Chargers. And we're going to get in some buy or sells here. Can Jesse Minter recreate that magic that he created at Michigan and bring that to the Chargers here in the NFL?
It's a great question because obviously we were duped once by Brandon Staley, so I think a little hesitant to just kind of sign off on this being a top defensive unit anytime soon. But today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. David, we finally got to hear from a couple of the Chargers free agent signings that I was very interested to hear from. Kristian Fulton, who, from the way they kind of approach the rest of the offseason, definitely seems like they're very high on him and expect him to be a starting outside corner for them going into the year. And also hearing from DJ Chark, the guy they added after drafting 3 wide receivers, obviously for a very specific reason. And you're right about Kristian Fulton being kind of persuaded and being sold the vision from Jim Harbaugh and Jesse Minter on why he chose Los Angeles to try to kind of rehab his career. And it was also just interesting hearing what he had to say just about wanting a fresh start. And this is what he said. What attracted me, really, I think that the coaching staff is excellent. I think they have all the pieces to be a successful team. As far as Harbaugh, Coach Jesse Minter, I felt really comfortable with the scheme that they're going to bring in. And I felt like it was a great opportunity, really, to just get a fresh start. And I think when you're talking about someone that we've seen play at a high level, even if it was a couple of years ago, it makes a lot of sense. And I do think that it was a really, really key for Jim Harbaugh, for Jesse Minter, to be able to get him to come in on the cheap, right, when they didn't have a lot to spend, and find a potential starting player on the outside and somebody who, as he says, is still an ascending player to come start on their defense potentially and rehab his image.
Yeah, I think this is a young guy. I mean, he's still young in the NFL. He's only been in the league for a few years. Yeah. And sometimes you just need a change of scenery. Sometimes you're not in the right situation, right? Or you just don't know what they're being asked to do. Like we had Braden Fehoko on the show a couple of seasons ago, and he was able to tell us about the role that he was actually specifically asked to do, and that gave us some insight as you just don't know what is happening behind closed doors and what these guys are being asked to do. Clearly, coming to the Chargers, Kristian Fulton felt comfortable with the role that he was going to be in and that he was going to be able to come here, have success, and potentially cash in on another contract or, stay with the Chargers. We'll see.
Yeah, and potentially, if he doesn't, get the Chargers another compensatory pick, right? Because if he does ball out this season, I mean, he's a young corner. Everyone wants a young corner, hopefully playing at a high level that can net the Chargers some future compensation if they're not able to bring him back. But I think the other thing, too, is just him thinking that the Chargers are going to put him in a position to succeed, right? This is what he said. I don't think personally, just looking back, that I was put in the best position, but that's just where I was drafted. I didn't have a say in that about him going to Tennessee. And he also just said, basically, Jim Harbaugh and this coaching staff are players' coaches. They'll let us be ourselves. And so reading between the lines there, it seems like it was a pretty volatile situation in Tennessee. It looked like, sounds like he was trying to get out of there. Obviously, Mike Vrabel was fired, but also, I think you want to hear him take some accountability, right? Like, you don't want him to just blame the circumstances as to why he wasn't good last year and why he really struggled over the last 2 seasons. But it was nice to hear him kind of open up about that, specifically about his struggles and kind of why he thinks he can improve. And he said there were really a lot of parts that played a part in not being the best. I can only control what I can control. It just wasn't my best product on the field. I've learned from it. I'm confident learning from my mistakes. I just think that the opportunity that I have here, the scheme, and like I said, how the coaches are teaching, feel like it's a great opportunity for me to put my skill set on display. And he has a great skill set But I do like, okay, taking accountability and knowing, hey, it might not have been a great situation in Tennessee, but at the same time, your struggles fall on you to a certain extent, right? And I do think there was other things. I mean, Jim Harbaugh has basically told us that he thinks, hey, this is a dude that was really just struggling with injuries. And he was trying to play through it, and he was a lesser version of himself. And we feel like with Ben Herbert here that we can get more out of him. But you have to also see him take that accountability too, where it's like, hey, I made mistakes. I learned from him, and that's why I feel like I can get better.
I mean, the first thing you got to do is take accountability. I mean, you got to look at the man in the mirror, all right? I mean, because at the end of the day, I mean, no matter what situation you're put in, you're the guy that's on the field, right? You're the guy that's out there making the plays on a down in, down out basis. And, you know, you have to make the most of that. So, I mean, you have to take some accountability for what happened and what did not happen. But now he feels like he's in a much better situation. Feels like, you know, he's got a fresh start, a new opportunity to try to prove himself, to try to show the type of player that he is and why he was made a first-round pick in the NFL. So hopefully the Chargers, Jesse Minter and Jim Harbaugh are able to draw that out. And hopefully Ben Herbert is able to keep him healthy, keep him on the football field. And if he does that, then this could be an incredibly smart business move for him.
And I think the other thing is it's not like he's just a straight-up bust, right? We have actually seen him in 2021 play at an exceptionally high level. Like, he's been there. If he played like the way he played in 2021 and 2023, the Chargers just would not have had a chance to get him. Like, the only reason he's available is because he struggled, and it just goes to kind of the formula the Chargers have had for a lot of their kind of buy low candidates in free agency, where they think, hey, we can get more out of this guy than what they got. Because I think a lot of times you look at quarterbacks and things like that, and I think, you know, no matter how good of a quarterback you are, if you're sent to the Jets, right, if you're put in really, really bad situations, if you're Bryce Young going to the Carolina Panthers, sometimes you just don't have a chance, right? So I think it is that to a certain extent. Obviously, he's taking accountability for the mistakes that he made, but I do think there's a lot of promise here, and I think there's good reason to think that he could be much better under Jesse Minter and with Jim Harbaugh. But another guy who I think could be looking to really play much better in 2024 is DJ Chark, and it was nice hearing from him, especially because he said, you know, one of the biggest reasons I came here was getting to play with Justin Herbert and just being candid. Why would you not want to? And he said, being able to play with an elite guy is definitely something that I'm excited to do and excited to be a part of and learn from. I feel like he can help me in a lot of different ways. And I think what that's kind of saying, he can help me kind of take my game back to where it was at one point, having a 1,000-yard season in 2019. But he can also kind of show different parts of my game that I wasn't really able to show when I had some of the past quarterbacks that I had to play with.
Well, if you're DJ Chark and you're a free agent wide receiver, right, you're going to want to go to a place where you have a quarterback that can make you look great. And inevitably, Justin Herbert can make wide receivers look phenomenal with his throwing talent, with his arm talent, with his accuracy, with his intelligence, you know, with just his overall game. So DJ Chark said, hey, I mean, I got a chance to go play with Justin Herbert in Los Angeles. Absolutely sign me up. I feel like we can make some fireworks. We can make some big plays. And I absolutely agree. I feel like if they're able to get on the same page very quickly, I mean, I think we can see some, you know, several long touchdowns in his future and in the Chargers' future.
Yeah, and I think he's just such a good fit, right? And he's talked about, hey, I'm here. I'm ready to go stretch the field for this team. I'm ready to make some big plays with this team. Another kind of funny thing that he said is like, just kind of following him casually over the last few years, it doesn't seem to have mattered who Justin Herbert was throwing the ball to, right? Even when his big guys were hurt, like Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, you still saw him making big plays. And immediately when he said that, I think of, you know, Alex Erickson and Michael Bandy, you know, and just Justin Herbert elevating the guys that he had. And like to a certain extent, you know, Keenan Allen makes Justin Herbert better. Mike Williams makes Justin Herbert better. But we saw Justin Herbert take Keenan Allen to places his career never could, even with Phillip Rivers. Yeah. Right? We saw Mike Williams have a 1,000-yard season under Justin Herbert, you know, with Justin Herbert pairing up with him. So I think that it works both ways. So, you know, I think you do want guys, and what we've always talked about before, like, hey, look what Jalen Waddle and Tyreek have done for Tua, or Devontae and A.J. Brown in Philly for Jalen Hurts. Like, we wanted that, but at the same time, though, Justin Herbert can absolutely elevate the receivers around him, and that's what the kind of process for this team has been. Hey, we'll build the rest of the offense around Justin Herbert and expect him to elevate his wide receivers like we saw with Patrick Mahomes winning the Super Bowl over the last couple of years. Maybe a big ask, but if you can really build the rest of it out, there is definitely a sound strategy there. But it is Tuesday. It is Chargers buy or sell, getting into the biggest storylines and overreactions, including One Twitter user asking if the Chargers actually need a number one wide receiver on this team, and much more we're getting into on today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, though, I need to tell you guys about Game Time, because Game Time is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier, and prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. And I can tell you from firsthand experience, like, if you want baseball tickets, go to Game Time. But it's more than that. It's any kind of tickets, whether it's any kind of sporting event, if you're trying to get into any playoff game for the NHL and NBA going on right now, any kind of baseball game, but also comedy, theater, music, whatever you're looking for, Game Time is going to get you the best price, because even if you find somewhere that beats it, you have the Game Time guarantee, meaning they will match it up to 110% if you find something in the same seat, row, and section as the ones that you're finding. So if you want that guarantee to know you're getting the best price, go to Game Time, because the other thing about Game Time is you get the prices up front. Right? They're not adding a bunch of fees and things like that, upfront pricing, and also a panoramic view of where you're sitting. So you know exactly what your view is going to be before you buy your tickets. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, David, let's get into buy or sell, and thank you to everyone who hit us up at Locked On LAC to give us your buy or sells. And we had so many good ones and then got the press conferences. We're not going to be able to get to all the great ones, but we do have this one here from Dro Talk SD, some random guy who says,
Who's that?
Buy or sell, the Chargers don't actually need a number one receiver for their offense to be successful. So, David, are you buying that or selling that? Because I think when you look at this roster right now, there is no true wide receiver one. There's no guy that jumps out to you and just like, okay, he's the best guy, and then everyone kind of else falls underneath.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think if you've watched the Chargers the last couple of years, I think you probably would say no way that they can excel without a number one wide receiver. But I think you absolutely can. So I am going to buy it. The Chargers can be successful without a number one wide receiver. Just take a look at the two teams that were in the AFC Championship game last year. The Kansas City Chiefs did not have a receiver that eclipsed 1,000 receiving yards, and neither did the Ravens. Also, 3 of the top 5 rushing teams in the NFL were in championship games last year. That is going to be the formula that Greg Roman is going to want to bring to this Chargers offense. They want to bring that rushing attack. They're going to be efficient. They are going to attack with it. That is what they want to do, and it clearly brings winning results.
Smash mouth football. All right, that's
That's it.
I buy it in theory, right? Because I think you buy it on the contingency of the Chargers are going to have one of the best rushing attacks in the NFL, and the Chargers are going to be able to protect Justin Herbert at a much better level than they have in years past. Like, if you have all those things going for you, you're doing great. The thing you didn't mention there is that the Chiefs and the Ravens have a Hall of Fame tight end and a multi-time All-Pro, Pro Bowl level tight end in Mark Andrews on the other team. So it's like, yes, they didn't have receivers. They also had top 4 tight ends on both teams, top 3 tight ends on each of those teams. So, like, yes, they did it without wide receivers, but they had an elite receiving option on both of those teams. Obviously, with the Ravens, Mark Andrews got hurt, was barely kind of working his way back into the playoffs, but, like, it's a little different. And, you know, Zay Flowers obviously played really well, but he wasn't a true kind of wide receiver one for the Ravens last year. Rashee Rice obviously played really, really well. Not a bona fide wide receiver one, but they got enough out of those guys, and that's what you're hoping for, right? You're hoping that even if you don't have a 1,000-yard receiver, maybe you have 3 750-plus yard receivers, right? But I just think that you need to have a receiver room that's built right for this to be true. Like, you know, and I think that is the one nice thing when you look at the Chargers receiver room. They have guys who can do a lot of different things, right? They have some speed. Yeah. They have some size. They have guys who can, you know, have great route running. They have guys with contested catchability. They have guys that can win at every level, right? Guys that can win quickly, guys that can win deep, guys that can win in the intermediate part of the field. So I think in theory, on paper, it can work, and you don't necessarily need that number one guy, that A.J. Brown, the DeAndre Hopkins type, right? The Justin Jefferson. You don't need him to have a successful offense, and obviously the Chiefs have showed us that. But everything else has to fall into place. And I think the other thing you didn't mention about the Chiefs and the Ravens, right? 2 of the top scoring defenses in the NFL last year, which had a huge part to do with it. So,
of course.
Let's get to this next question here we have from Will, or this next buy or sell, which is this. Buy or sell, Justin Herbert will have the best completion percentage in the league next season. That's tough, David. I mean, that is a good question. We've actually seen him get pretty close to it. He ranked 3rd in completion percentage in 2022, so not that far off from it. Do you think he could actually lead the NFL this year in completion percentage?
I absolutely love Justin Herbert. I'm probably one of the biggest Justin Herbert apologists on the face of the earth, but I'm going to sell it. And the reason why is he had the 16th best completion percentage last year, obviously dealing with a broken finger and, and injuries and stuff like that. But that would take, and also did that with absolutely no running game to speak of, no consistent running game.
No Mike Williams for most of the season either.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So definitely had some things, some protection issues
working
as well.
Against him. Yeah.
Yeah. Some things running against him. I think top 10 is absolutely achievable. And I think he probably will get close to hitting top 5, especially if the rushing attack is what we expect it to be. I think the play action game is going to be phenomenal. And I think there's going to be a lot more open throwing windows to be able to be had for him, because opposing defenses are legitimately going to have to account for that rushing attack, and they can't just keep those 2 safeties over the top and dare him to throw it deep. They're going to have to defend the run because it's going to be a lot more successful.
Yeah, and I think when you look at Greg Roman offenses of the past, it's not like they've had guys that have been near the top of the league or at the top of the league in completion percentage outside 1 year. 2012, Alex Smith actually led the NFL in completion percentage, check down king, pretty much. But still, he completed 70% of his passes. So we've seen it done in a Greg Roman offense before. That year, Colin Kaepernick took over for an injured Alex Smith, and they went to the Super Bowl. If you had to ask me buy or sell, he will be number 1. I have to sell it. I have to see what this offense can do before I could really, really put any faith in it. I mean, last year, Tua led the league at just under 70%. 2023 is actually Jake Browning, who is at 70.5% with Joe Burrow being hurt. So you're looking at around 70% completion percentage. I think Justin Herbert is absolutely accurate enough to do this. Sure. I think the other big part of this that really affects completion percentage is these receivers have to catch the ball consistently. You can't have nearly as many drops as they had last year and think that he's going to be near the top of the league in completion percentage. So I think he'll be up there. I think he will be a much more efficient quarterback, and completion percentage is not a great stat, right? 2021, his best season, I think is his lowest completion percentage, or he ranked lowest in the league in his completion percentage out of his career and had his best season. So not the end all be all, but I think that, if they can get the running going, get the play action out of that, create those open throwing windows, I think he'll be pretty close to it. I think he's going to be right up there with the best guys in the league. But let's get to this next one. We have a voicemail here for someone we think is Andrew Petrelli. We're not sure, so we're going to go with Nameless calling into the show today. Let's see what Nameless has for us.
Hi, Daniel. Hi, David. I appreciate you guys and what you do for the Chargers community on a day-to-day consistent basis. This stuff ain't easy. Now, I've been doing some research on Greg Roman and his offense, and I have to say, it's just a weird fit with Justin Herbert. Now, with that said, buy or sell, Justin Herbert has more design runs that go for 25-plus yards than touchdowns with 25-plus air yards.
I mean, I think that would be wild. I was trying to look at it. It's not an easy stat to look up. I don't think Justin Herbert's ever had a 25-yard rushing touchdown. I remember he had the really long run against the Steelers where Cam Hayward landed on top of him and punched him in the stomach.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was a 36-yard run.
Yeah, which I believe is still the longest run of his career. And I think the other thing that's kind of out here is just that last year there wasn't a lot of 25-plus air yard touchdowns, right? You didn't see him airing out. But I do think that with this new offense, with Greg Roman, I do think you're going to actually see more deep shots. I think you're going to see, especially with a team that now has a little bit more speed, a 4-3 guy in DJ Chark, a 4-3 guy with some yak ability in Ladd McConkey, that you're going to see more 25-plus air yard touchdowns, absolutely, than you will see 25-plus yard rushing touchdowns from Justin Herbert. So I'm going to sell that.
Yeah, I'm definitely selling it as well. I mean, He's had 36 runs of 10-plus yards, only 2 rushes of 15-plus yards on designed runs. So he's just not a quarterback that has really been utilized in that space. I do feel like he will get more design runs, but let's not mistake ourselves and say that he's a Lamar Jackson or a Josh Allen. He's not. He's just not going to be used in that way. But he does have 101 passes of 20-plus yards in his career, according to PFF. So Justin Herbert is a quarterback that does throw it deep, and he has plenty of long touchdowns, as his highlight reel will attest to. So I expect that it will definitely be the passing touchdowns that eclipse the rushing touchdowns.
He definitely has. I just think a lot of them came before last year, right? I mean, like before that, you had like the Josh Palmer, DeAndre Carter, 30-plus yard touchdowns that season, and a few from Mike Williams running away with, 30-plus yard touchdowns. Last year, there just wasn't a lot. I mean, no really legitimate deep threat without Mike Williams. They didn't have any legitimate true burner outside Darius Davis, who's not that kind of receiver. So I think we will see more of that under Greg Roman. I understand the thought of, hey, Greg Roman, Justin Herbert is an odd fit. I think you have to kind of hope that Greg Roman can evolve. And you're also hoping that their thought process works, that if we give Justin Herbert an obviously great quarterback, a good running game, and good protection, he will be able to elevate his game and take his game to the next level as well, even if he might not be putting up the gaudy stats we've seen from him in years past. But we do have more buy or sells to get into, including if Jesse Minter can do what Brandon Staley never could and turn this Chargers defense into a top 3 defense at some point in his career over the next few seasons. We're going to get to that and much more, even a tier calling in for a voicemail today on today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, though, I do need to tell you guys about FanDuel because it's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. That means you can pick the biggest favorites, even on the money line. You don't have to bet against the spread. And if they win, you get $150 in bonus bets. Also, one of the things I love about FanDuel, same game parlays, especially in sports I don't like as much as football. It's always fun. I love getting the big odds, and you can get some tonight if you want to get in on the action of the Knicks-Pacers game. You can go with Jalen Brunson to score 40+ and make 4+ threes, and really a must-win game probably for the Knicks in Game 5 at Madison Square Garden. Plus, he scored 40 in like 3 straight games already earlier in the series. And Miles Turner to score 20+ and make 3+ threes in a borderline must-win game for both teams. You can get that at plus 29.37 if you want some crazy odds. And if you just want to get in on this playoff action, make sure to visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, David, well, it's time to get into some more Chargers buy or sells, getting into the biggest storylines and overreactions as we always do. But also make sure everyone is checking out Locked On Sports Today, the first ever 24/7 national sports streaming channel, giving you every sport that you could ask for, given the expertise of the local experts covering those teams every day. Because unless you're covering those teams every day, you're just not going to get what you get at the Locked On Podcast Network. So make sure you guys go subscribe to the Locked On Sports Today, first ever national 24/7 sports streaming channel. Let's get to this one, David. We have another great buy or sell here, and we'll have some we'll have to use on future buy or sells just because there were so many good ones today, and we appreciate everyone. From Drew Bannon, who says this: buy or sell, Jesse Minter will have a top 3 defense in the next 3 or 4 years. Love the show. Bolt up. What do you think, David? Are you buying that Jesse Minter can do something that the defensive wonderkin Brandon Staley never could?
The author of the #1 defense in the NFL last year was Mike McDonald, who came from the University of Michigan. And guess who took over for him? That would be current Chargers defensive coordinator Jesse Minter. And Jesse Minter ran the #1 defense in all of college football last year in lieu to a national championship. And, by all accounts, took that same style of defense and actually made it even better. So we know that that defense translates to the NFL level. And so I feel like the Chargers do have the pieces in place to be able to do that as long as they have the health. So in the next 3 to 4 years, I'm going to buy it.
I would disagree with you on them having the pieces. I just straight up don't think they have the pieces defensively to be a top 3 defense this year. Can they build into it?
I'd say this year.
Okay, you said they had the pieces to do it. You know what I'm saying?
In the next 3 to 4 years, yeah.
But we don't know what pieces they're going to have in the next 3 to 4 years, right? So it's like we don't know what those rosters are going to look like, what those defenses are going to look like. That's where the difference is. To me, it's more the faith that I have in Joe Ortiz being able to build Jesse Minter the defense that Tom Telesco couldn't build, or, that Brandon Staley couldn't translate into a top 3 defense. So I think it could absolutely happen. The reason I would sell it, because I could definitely buy it. I mean, the last time the Chargers had a top 10 defense was 2018. The last time they had a top 3 scoring defense was 2017 with Gus Bradley. If you would have told me they had a top 3 defense with Gus Bradley, it would have been hard to remember and accept that. Just because, everyone hated Gus Bradley.
Well, it was number 1 defense and number 1 offense and still missed the playoffs.
I mean, that was 2010. So that was well before Gus Bradley's time. But I think that is what it comes down to more than me. I think the other thing that could get in the way of this is if Jesse Minter leads 2 top 10 defenses the next 2 years, he's probably gone. You know what I mean? So he might not have 3 or 4 years to show that he can do it. So I believe that he could probably do it. Top 3 is really tough. Like you said, the Ravens had the best defense in the league last year under Mike McDonald. He had a lot more to work with. I think that Joe Ortiz can build that for him. I think it's going to take time, but I think it's absolutely possible that he gets it done. But let's go to a tier here who's calling in with his buy or sell this week, and he has a great question about safety duos. Let's hear what he has for us this week.
Hi, Dan. Hi, David. This is a tier. Buy or sell. Alohi and DJ will be the top 3 safeties duo in the NFL. And the Chargers secondary will finish top 6 in the NFL by the end of the season. I'm buying it. What says you? I believe in Jesse Minter. Let's go.
Tier, I love you. First of all, that's a tough one. I think the hard thing is we'll see where Justin Simmons signs. Maybe that makes a top safety duo that we just don't know about at this point, and maybe that changes things. There's not a ton of elite safety duos that you would just say, okay, no matter what, these guys are, head and shoulders above where Alohi Gilman and Derwin James are. But I can tell you one thing, those 2 guys played together last year. They were not a top 3 safety duo in the league last year. And that is with Alohi Gilman having his best season. So I think I would sell it and also sell the top 6 in passing yards allowed, just because I just have too many questions in the secondary. I think we will see a better version of Derwin James. I think we could see Alohi Gilman come back to earth a little bit, right? I mean, I'd say the Ravens of Kyle Hamilton and Marcus Williams is the number 1 safety duo right now. A lot of question marks after that. So could they push it? Maybe. I just have too many question marks in the secondary, whether it's Kristian Fulton bouncing back, who's going to start in the slot. Is Asante Samuel Jr. a good fit for Jesse Minter's defense to think it's a top 6 secondary for sure going into 2024?
Yeah, I just think it's too big of a jump. I mean, the Chargers were 29th last year, and to be able to get to 6th, which was actually the Baltimore Ravens, they'd have to decrease that number by 55.9 yards per game on average. So I'm going to sell it. I just think that it's too ambitious to be able to expect that. I do expect it to be a lot better, but top 6, I think is a little too hard for me.
Yeah, and like I said, we'll see about the top safety duos. I think it's tough. It's hard to compare safety duos to others, and we'll see kind of how the rookies play into that this year too and what those look like. But I do have one more buy or sell here from Hunter Miller, who hit us up at Locked On LAC in the DMs, who said, buy or sell, the 4 horsemen, Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, Tui Tuipulotu, and Bud Dupree, will combine for over 35 sacks in 2024. David, are you buying that?
I am going to buy it. I'm going to buy it. And the reason why is because I actually believe, and it might be foolhardy of me to do so, but I feel like Joey Bosa is going to be a little bit healthier this season. I think he's going to play a little bit more. And that's only about 8.75 sacks per person. I don't expect Khalil Mack to rack up 17 sacks once again this year. But yeah, I do feel like that is doable, especially, with those 4 guys on probably going to be on the field at the same time a couple of times, and they're going to cause a lot of havoc.
This is a really tough one because, to show me the last time a team had 4 edge rushers that had 8 sacks each. That's not a small number, especially close to 9 sacks each, but I don't think it's going to be that way. The reason I would have faith in it happening is I think between Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack, if you get a somewhat healthy Joey Bosa this season, there's no reason both of them couldn't put up 12 or 13 sacks. So if you have those guys combining for, hey, one gets 12, one gets 13, you would really only need Tui Tuipulotu and Bud Dupree to combine for 10 sacks. So that's my reasoning as to why I would buy it, because all 4 of them having 9 is hard. I think the Joey Bosa injury, injury fear is what would kind of hold me back from just totally going full, furlong into this. But I think it's possible. I think it's very possible. If it's not probable, it's definitely possible. I could definitely see it happening. It feels like Joey Bosa, with how this team is going to approach his, playing time and, how they see him as part of a fixture of this defense, is going to put up double-digit sacks if he can play 12, 13 games to me. Like, I think I would almost guarantee it. Could he do it with Ben Herbert in there helping him out in this new strength and conditioning program? I think it's possible, and we have seen him do it before, right? We just need to see him do it again and show that he can be healthy. I think that's the biggest thing.
I want to see some more sack dances.
If Joey Bosa does get hurt, because I think, I expect Thule to get 6 or 7 sacks this year. So if both of those guys are in double digits, you have Thule kind of up in his game a little bit and getting a few more. Bud Dupree throwing in 5 or 6 sacks. I think they could get to that number, but it's hard to do. Not many edge rusher groups are putting up 35 sacks just between them, right? Not including linebackers or interior defensive linemen or anything like that. We're talking just edge rushers. I think those 4 could do it, though, because I do think that is the best group of edge rushers in the entire league. So if anyone can do it, 1 through 4, I think the Chargers definitely can. But that's going to wrap things up for today's show. Make sure you guys are back here tomorrow because we are bringing on the Locked On Irish host to talk about all of the new Notre Dame players the Chargers have. Not only the 2 they drafted, but also Thomas Harper, who they ended up bringing in an undrafted free agency. They also have Chris O'Leary. They also have Alohi Gilman on the team. So make sure you guys are here for that. And also just a correction, I don't think the voicemail we had is in the latest in a long line of nameless callers that have called in. I believe it's Nicholas Petrelli. I think it said Andrew Petrelli. Nicholas Petrelli, frequent question asker. I think that was him on the voicemail. But make sure you guys are back here tomorrow by following or subscribing to the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listening wherever you get your podcast from, as well as following us on all of our social media. We post the show to all of it every day. You can hit us up at Locked On LAC to find the show and also to get into fan mail and buy or sell shows. And you can also find us at Locked On Chargers on Instagram and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page. You can also find the show on each of our accounts. On Twitter, you can find me at Dan Talk Sports and David Jurgmeyer at Dro Talk SD. And you can also find the show every day wherever you get your podcast from. So thank you guys for checking out today's show. Make sure you guys are back for the Locked On Irish, Locked On Chargers crossover episode so we can talk about some of these new Notre Dame players, including the number 1 pick for the Chargers this year, Joe Alt. But until then, guys, take it easy and go Bolts.